good day. Welcome to another edition of Spotlight on Mayapack Schools. Eric Grosser, host, along with Superintendent of Schools Anthony DiCarlo. And Anthony, happy spring.
Yes.
Hopefully.
Hopefully the sun continues to shine for a
Amen.
number of days. I mean, the amount of rain, and it's not just rain, but it's the volume of rain
Oh,
that we've
and the
gotten.
cold. And
Yeah,
they had
I
snow
know.
upstate in the other day.
So I'm hoping that we have a nice stretch of nice weather so that we can
It's long
get our
overdue.
fields finally dried
Long
out.
overdue.
Yeah. So and we're in the home stretch. It's the final 10 weeks of school.
Exciting news in the field of sports in Mayapack. Basketball, girls, boys, take it away.
Yeah, so tomorrow night we're going to be celebrating our winter season, and at the Board of Education meeting. And basketball, boys and girls, I think, unless somebody can tell me differently, I think it's the first time in school history that it's happened that both teams went 10-0 in league play, which is a tremendous accomplishment. We're going to be honoring our bowling teams, for league champions, state recognized, individuals who won state awards in bowling. Yeah, our teams in gymnastics. You name it. What's interesting is every single winter team made New York State Scholar athlete teams, which is like unbelievable. I mean, that's incredible.
And
Every single
that
team.
means-
That's 75% or more of the team had a 90 percentage grade point average or above. That's unbelievable.
Imagine it's 90% average on your grades, and yet they're practicing for the various sports.
But you know what? This is a testament to what a true student athlete is. We talk about sports and we talk about, its place, but what first comes before it is the word student. And that personifies Mayapack High School and what our student athletes are all about. How academics is first and foremost, and to be able to get that accolade where every single teammate is just incredible. And that speaks to the academics that go on at Mayapack High School. It speaks to the teachers. That speaks to the administration. That speaks to the parents, and most importantly, the kids who you said are dedicated. But I'm not surprised, because if you look at the research, students who participate in sports or activities perform much better when they're in season, because Eric, they're regimented. They have their day, it's structured, they have their time when they have to do what they need to do, and it doesn't surprise me. And it's just a testament to, what goes on at Mayapack High School and in this district.
It's not only sports, but we have the Thespians coming up also in another week.
Yeah, Putnam Annual County Spelling
25th
Bee
annual.
next week. Yeah, 25th annual. It's a great show.
Yeah.
It's a fun show. It'll take place next Friday, Saturday,
And
and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I think it's
28th, 29th, and 30th.
Yeah. So please come out to the high school, or in person. Come out and enjoy a great evening and great entertainment, a great show. And then we have our concerts coming up in the next number of weeks between now and the end of the year, and we have our induction ceremonies for all our honor societies, our athletic awards, our academic awards, our graduations. Everything is going to be, like you said, a lot of great stuff happening over the next 2
The home
months of
stretch,
school.
my man, the home stretch.
Yeah, it's the home stretch. It's kind of bittersweet, but
Oh,
it's
yeah.
it's always exciting, time of the year. So, and budget. Got to make sure hammering this away. May 17th, Tuesday, 6 a.m., 9 p.m. Mayapack High School. Come out and vote. There'll be a lot of information coming out. We'll be doing a segment in the next couple of weeks on the budget itself. I know that there will be announcements made. We have 7 individuals who are running for our school board trustee positions, so there'll be a lot of information. I know the PTO will be doing a meet the candidates night, so please look for that information coming out over the next several weeks. It's that time of the year, a lot of exciting things going on, and hopefully a lot of great celebrations as we celebrate the classes of 2022, our retirees, and it's a great time.
We have a very interesting show for you today. We have some very special guests. We have the assistant principal of Mayapack High. We also have 2 young ladies from Project Hope who are going to be talking about the after effects of COVID and how it's affecting students and faculty and the community in general. Should we break away and talk to these guest stars today?
That'd be wonderful. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Let's go for it right now. Joining us for this segment of the program, Gary Ziegelhofer, the assistant principal at Mahopac High. And Gary, welcome.
Thank you, Eric. How you doing?
Anthony invited Gary to the show today to talk about security.
Yeah, so there's been a couple of questions that have come up. All in the high school, there, some of the faculty as well as students and some parents are seeing security personnel at the building, and so a number of years ago, we had a conversation with the high school administration, and as we have been trying to right size the district, and as people are retiring, to look to kind of repurpose some positions. And what has happened in the high schools is we're looking at some security individuals to come in. Nobody's lost jobs. There's a lot of innuendo out there that we're letting monitors go. They're losing their jobs. Absolutely not. As people have retired, we're kind of repurposing because and Gary will explain a little bit more, there's kind of two separate roles, what a monitor does and what a security individual does. And Gary will kind of take us through that, especially in 2022 in which we're in. And Gary will take a little bit through about what the kind of vision was and what we're doing. So, Gary?
So, Gary, you're on, as I say. Tell us about this new program.
So, some years ago, really the year before Anthony started as our superintendent, there was a lot of conversation about security throughout the district and at the high school. And as a community member, I always say the high school is sort of like the town hall, right? There's so many activities that go on there 24/7. Any given Saturday or weekend, you could find people there, right? But it also lent itself to say, where are we at security and what are we doing to make sure when our kids are there, that we're at the best security level we could be. So the discussion started about how are we as a building securing our facilities and what are we doing? And one of the things Anthony did right away when he came on board was brought in more sheriffs in the form of SPOs to our district so that every building had an SPO in it, right? But as a high school, we still have a lot of students, a large body, and a lot of movement that goes on there with our kids coming and going, late arrivals, early dismissals, parents. 1,400 kids a day moving around, right? And staff. So through the guidance of BOCES and our administrative team visiting other high schools, it became apparent security firms, or what a lot of districts are using now, as an augment or an offset from just police and monitors. And it's not judging either side. It's a middle ground where these people have high certifications that are applied by the state. They have a background in a different lens of looking at the grounds, how we approach situations, or maybe how people entering the building may be looked at, right? Not in a negative way. Still greet them in the same way we did with our monitors. Hello and how are you doing? And offer them the same amenities, but with a person in the background that is stating in their attire and the way they present themselves as security, making it aware to everyone entering that now there's someone there that has a different lens on how they approach situations, right? So if someone starts to get loud or someone starts to become aggravated about a response they get, that person can step in. And it's not a police officer and it's not a monitor that isn't really taught how to deal with those situations in the same way a security officer might be.
Are these all people uniformed?
They do wear, our security group wears black uniforms that say security on the back, coats that say security,
Right.
Polos that say security, and they present in a way that they are present in the areas that are entry points and throughout the building during the day, so that they are there to be a security force as people come and go from our
And
building.
this, of course, is in addition to the SRO and the SPO.
Correct. And also, and Gary can explain to you, they're also now there after hours.
Yes.
So their hours are a lot different. So there is a presence when we have a lot of activities after school, our clubs and some of the other things, Gary.
So after, we'll say 2:00, right? Our monitors are their day is done, right? Many of them are going home, but our building still is running. You still have a number of students there in sports and after school activities and clubs. So the security now allows us to have people still monitoring the floors, being a presence in the building, and one of the security officers stays till as late as 6:00. So even after hours, when the building is truly empty and our students are done with their school day, and some maybe late day sports are going on, there's still a presence in the building to walk through and make sure there's nothing inappropriate or any concerns going on during that time period.
These patrol officers have walkie-talkies or in contact with others?
They have all the capabilities that a monitor and the SROs and SPOs have in our building, and are treated with the same respect. And the students, though, when they walk upon them, it's not a person in general clothing or a teacher. It's a person with a security shirt that the students generally see in a little different light and might approach in a different way.
And how have they been accepted by the faculty, by the students?
Well, that's where I think myself and Anthony having this conversation was at the district safety meeting this past month. A parent who was part of the committee wanted to know how this came to be, and I explained that through good practices in other districts doing, we learned this, and then through BOCES, who is really the umbrella that helps drilled security and background into many of our programs, they made it clear that this was a process that most districts that have large high schools like ours undergo in order to build another layer of security into their buildings.
You know, when you talk about BOCES right away, aid gets involved. Does BOCES help subsidize this?
Not specifically, but they do have a big presence in how we formulate our overall security and safety plan. So a lot of what we do and all of our drills and what happens is channeled through Frank Guglieri, who's in charge of the Putnam North Westchester umbrella of that.
Right.
So Frank comes out, he'll be here when drills are going on, take a look at what we're doing and when we're not. And actually having these two layers of monitors and security and our SPOs and our SROs is best practice. So we really are in line with what some of the best practices are in the region and around the country. So we try to keep up to date in every aspect that we can when it comes to the safety and well-being of our faculty, and our parents and our students.
And I just want to say in this process, there were many firms we could choose from too, and it was a deep dive by the district and or our administrative team at really picking the best capable group that fit our needs and our community.
So it's a more safe environment for the faculty, for the students, and the staff.
Yeah, and and there's a lot more movement, as was mentioned by Gary, like being able to patrolling the grounds both inside and outside, before school, during school, after school, goes a really, really long way. But we're also, and while we have Gary here, but we're also starting to see, we went at COVID and we were either remote or we had hybrid. There was a whole different kind of atmosphere. We're now getting back to somewhat normalcy is, and I hate to be honest with you, but some of the kids have to realize that you can't go back to doing some of the things that you were doing before COVID and thinking it's acceptable. We have seen an uptick with vaping, okay? And it's unacceptable. I mean, I've sat here for 5 years, and I say this all the time, and I say this to parents and kids. You vape in your own home? You know what I get all the time? Absolutely not. Well, you're not coming into Mahopac High School or Mahopac Middle School and vaping. Kids should be, we are an institution of academic learning. We're here to learn, okay? That impacts the atmosphere and the ability for us to do what needs to be done. And we take it very seriously. And if you come into the building and you are vaping and using products and or trying to sell them or whatever else, it's a serious consequence. And Mrs. Eagle will tell you, we take it very seriously. And we have seen an uptick in the last number of weeks, and we're not going to play the game. Do not come into the building and think it's going to happen. It's not. This is a learning environment.
So what happens if a young person is caught vaping?
Well, I want to denote there's a difference, right?
Yeah.
There's the e-cigarette vaping, which is more like the old school cigarette, right?
Right.
And then there's now THC, which are pot pens, right? And what the problem is that the state is legalized these things, right, for 21 and over.
Mm-hmm.
But young people are going to do what they do, which is try and experiment and
Right.
use these items, right? So if you get caught with a e-cigarette, which is like, again, old school cigarette, you're going to get it in school, and it's going to be progressive, right? So it's going to be us teaching and the counselor and administration working with that student to understand how it's impacting their body and their mindset, but also an in-school suspension for a day for bringing that to school.
Okay.
But if you bring a THC pen, I tell people, it's like bringing a bottle of vodka into a building, right? It's a major substance that impacts your well-being, your mental health, your physical well-being, and if you're sharing with others, could impact them, right? And that is a different item altogether, because that now deals with a 5-day suspension and a potential soup hearing where Mr. DiCarlo gets involved, and really that student could see an extended suspension out of school. And I think parents aren't seeing the difference between the two, because they're seeing them very similarly, and that in the world of ads and TV, these are becoming very common items that you will see promoted and talked about and text to you in different ways. And kids can easily buy them online, and a parent may not even know. But the reality is there's a big difference in how they are treated and how a student's consequences are.
It's too bad we have to talk about this today. Was it 3 years ago or 4 years ago at Mahopac High when there was a forum in the evening where guest speakers came in and talked about the dangers of this? And here we are today, years later, needing to have a security force to crack down on this.
It's a part of, listen, schools have to adapt to society. And whether we like it or not, we are in a very difficult state in this country. As Gary just mentioned, there's a lot of stuff that's, available for kids to see, to experiment with, which never happened before. And, we're going through, and we're going to see a next segment about, social emotional well-being of kids. And sometimes when you are struggling and you're having issues that are going on socially, emotionally, you then all of a sudden gravitate to some of these things that are not going to actually help you out at all. they're actually going to further compound an issue. So it's difficult times as a country. I think we're going through something we've never been through before. It's and what Gary said, it's how we kind of work together. But it's got to be a community working together.
Yeah.
It can't be pointing fingers. It can't be blaming everybody else. We have to take responsibility sometimes for our actions, and we make sometimes choices that aren't the correct ones. But it's working together. It's not screaming and yelling at one another and thinking that screaming and yelling and not working together doesn't do anybody any good. And I think that's part of what we have to do a much better job with as we start to move forward. I think it's the listening, it's the problem solving, it's the working together, it's coming together as a community. There's continually bashing people on social media, whether it's an individual, whether it doesn't do anybody any good. We have places to come together and talk and problem solve, and we're supposed to be role models for our kids. And at the end of the day, if you talk to the kids, they want to be able to solve problems. They want to be able to work together. But you got to put them together to be able to do that. So that's another big part of it.
We talked about this on our last program with the SRO. The same thing, dealing with civility in education, civility in the community. Unfortunately, it's not always there.
No, because it's taking on a whole different meaning because you have people who can't communicate.
Yeah.
Let's just face the facts. You have one side who feels another one way, another side who feels another, and nobody wants to come together and work on something that's going to benefit all. And that becomes part of the issue. When you can't dialogue, you can't have a conversation, and you see it being modeled, in the country in which you live, that nobody can get together and try to problem solve together, it's problematic. And it filters all the way down to schools. And now what happens is that if people feel, Eric, that they don't have a voice and they can't get anywhere with their federal government or their state government, they come to school board meetings and they want to see these changes,
Right.
and some of which we cannot implement because we don't have that authority. But what we can, we should be working through. And I'm sure the new superintendent, Ms. Tona, understands that. She's going to come aboard as the district looks to its next, strategic plan and what that looks like, and what we're looking at academically, what we're looking at social emotionally, what we're looking at, for kids. That's going to be that next piece to the puzzle. And it's work that needs to be done, whether it's social emotional, whether it's with, diversity, inclusion, and equity. These are tough conversations, but we want kids to be able to communicate and problem solve together.
And I'm
Yeah.
going to just add, with that being said, it's
Yeah.
also understanding and knowledge base, right? So for parents, some of these things like e-cigarettes, the new THC gummies, they look like gummy bear candies, right? That kids can buy that are heavily impactful to their well-being and their health, right? But yet parents don't understand what it is that their kids may have in their hands because it's moving so quickly and it's so easily readily found online that a parent may not know that a THC gummy is an illegal thing to have on school and your kid will be suspended with a soup hearing. But they see it as a piece of candy. They literally see it. My kid had candy.
So what advice do you have for parents out there? Become
Well-
more attuned with your children?
I don't think it's just becoming more attuned with your children. I think it's really understanding the environment of change, right? Because it's happening so quickly and it's so hard. I'm a parent in this community and I can say that my kids are in the middle school and elementary years, but some of the topics and things that come up, I think would have been more high school oriented, but it's going so quickly at this age and this period where technology and the availability of what they can see online, it affects mental health, well-being, and social well-being. So all those things are occurring, and as a parent, that's a lot to take on. It's a lot to deal with, but we've got to become as informed as we can so when our kids are doing things, we're more aware of, hey, that may not be the candy I thought it was when I was a kid. Let me look at the packaging. Let me take a deeper look at what I'm dealing with at home. That's not just a cigarette. That might be something other. Let me read the packaging. Let me get involved. Because I'm not saying, as a parent myself, I have to do those things.
Yeah.
And it's hard, and it takes more time, and it's not as easy as maybe, and I'm not saying my parents had it easy, but it's not maybe as easy as my parents had it. But yet, it's another generation of problems that we have to be aware of and look at clearly.
More discussions at PTO meetings.
Yeah, I mean, like everything else, I think it's really important to understand that, schools have to adapt to what these new changes are and try to work together through them and collectively. And I think what we try to do as a district is to try to put people and programs in place to try to help support kids and be able to get them through these difficult times. And it's not easy. You got to remember, you have kids that have been masked up for a long period of time, not been able to socially interact with one another. Some kids kind of hiding, and not socializing the way they needed to, and now we're coming back to reality, and some kids struggle with that.
Yeah.
And how can we, first of all, get them to kind of open up to one another, and because it's not just you who may be going through it, it's others, and how can you collectively kind of problem solve and open those discussions up and lead your own way. And I think we're going to see the next segment when we talk about that, what some of those frameworks may be to try to help kids out.
Gary, we thank you.
Thank you.
Gary Ziegelhofer, the assistant principal of Mahopac High, and Anthony and I will be right back. Maggie Trainer and Pam McGurgan are with us now. The two ladies are part of Project Hope. Welcome to the program. What is Project Hope?
So thank you for having us, first of all. When we first planned to come on here, we were going to be masked, so I guess it works in our favor that we are now here and unmasked. But Project Hope is a FEMA-funded program. It's through the Office of Mental Health, and it's a statewide initiative to provide crisis counseling to New Yorkers. So if you've heard on the radio or on the TV, there's been commercials for New York Project Hope. That's for the statewide support line. It's the 1-888 number, and that is for emotional support. And Maggie and I work for Family Services of Westchester, and I also represent Open Door Family Medical Center for this program. And so we were one of the agencies that received funding to provide crisis counseling to Westchester County, and we've been able to also offer that to Mahopac because Putnam County does not have an agency representing it. So we provide crisis counseling, support groups, public education, workshops, support to any kind of offices, agencies, community, but actually most recently to the school districts.
So you go into the school district, into the meeting with parents, with kids, teachers, how does that work?
For actually up until only January this year, we've been doing everything by Zoom for the most part, right? What you said?
They're mostly all virtual up until the last 3-4 months.
Within the school system. So we have done other programs with other after school and summer camps that have been in person. But for school systems and school districts, it's been Zoom. So we've done PTA meetings, we've done workshops in school now, meeting with kids and providing different games and workshops about coping strategies and anxiety, all the different mental health issues that have arisen from the COVID pandemic. Just kind of educate them and also remind them of the strengths that they have. To get them back to where they were functioning before COVID.
I think
This is elementary as well as middle and high school children?
Yes. And college.
And college,
We've worked
too.
with Westchester Community College as well,
Monroe
and
College,
Monroe.
some local colleges. I think what Anthony was saying, which is really important, is what happened with COVID is a lot of people lost their, I don't know if you want to say their social graces or how to communicate effectively.
Identity.
Their patience level, and that happened not just with adults, obviously, but with kids. And it trickled down. So when your kids are misbehaving or acting out and the parents are frustrated, the whole remote learning and then transition to hybrid learning put a lot of stress on parents with their work schedules and juggling daycare. So when it was stressful for all levels of the population. But when the kids really came back in, it was interesting. We outreached to schools in spring of the year before, and we really didn't get much feedback until this past fall when we circled back to the school districts in September. And I remember there was a huge push by Halloween, early Thanksgiving, where all of the school districts, especially the guidance counseling departments, were knocking down our door help us now. These kids are really struggling. What services could you provide for us? The parents are really struggling as well. I think that was a big part of.
Yeah, they were noticing, especially, so by the time the kids got into school in the fall and by later fall, they were noticing a lot of behavioral issues, school avoidance, a lot of anxiety, some suicidal ideation, a lot of isolation.
And most recently, with the masks being optional, a lot of anxiety and that divide of the kids that want to wear the mask still and the kids that aren't wearing them. That was most recently, I think, one of the biggest issues the kids were struggling with.
How many days a week are you in Mahopac? Do you visit the various classrooms or groups of children?
We actually both live in Mayapack, so we're here every day,
All
all
right,
day.
that's easy
I have a
enough.
kid in every school section, elementary through high school, so we're very familiar with it. So, I think the major roadblock, and I'll be frank with you, that we've hit with several districts, and
Right.
we've really made headway with some bigger districts, like say Yonkers, that are begging us to come into the schools and we've been piggybacking on their gym periods to hit every class throughout, like the middle school, the high school, and then we're now working with the elementary school levels. So there was security issues, making sure if we're in the building, some districts wanted background checks for our staff and what our qualifications were, So each district had different questions and concerns. But we're very hopeful with Mayapack District. Right now we have a meeting tomorrow afternoon actually with the YMCA that provides after-school programming for the elementary schools in Mayapack. So we have a meeting. They really want us involved with their after-school programming and their summer camps. And since that's Northern Westchester, but they service Mayapack. So we're hoping that will be our entry into physically being involved with the school kids in person.
Anthony, what kind of feedback are you getting from the community with these ladies?
Well, I think one of the things we also talk about, we had them come in and speak with our PTOs, is to hopefully, as we kind of get back to somewhat normalcy and have programs coming in, for us to be able to work with kids during the course of after-school programs and kind of help them. And like I mentioned before, ultimately, we've talked about this, is getting kids first of all to kind of understand others are going through the same thing, and eventually through education and working together, make it a part of them becoming leaders and going in and helping out one another. That's ultimately, this happens over time. It doesn't happen just like that. And I think their expertise in being able to work with that and through that is ultimately, over the course of next years and years to come, is to get kids to kind of be their own mentors to one another and help them navigate through some of these things. Because there's always going to be ups and downs in life, and how can you kind of work through that? And like anything else, you learn more from learning from one another. And kids learn a lot more from each other than when adults speak to them. Because a lot of times, and these two ladies can speak to that, it's sometimes difficult to have that conversation with an adult with a child, but a child to child and peer to peer is a different conversation.
And that's
I'll elaborate on that. Yeah.
It's very important what you said too. This is a temporary program. I mean, this is, FEMA rolls this out in a natural disaster. A pandemic was considered a disaster. So our role besides the educational groups, is the peer support groups. It's not a counseling group. It really is. It's a peer leadership. We're there. Crisis counseling model is not long-term therapy. It is there to meet the group where they're at, and help start them on their way. So yeah, the long-term plan is peer support groups to get the kids communicating effectively with each other, sharing in a safe space how they're feeling, how they're coping with what's going on in their life. And the point of that is, when this program is no longer around, that these students and these groups can continue to, self-operate.
Now, students across all levels will be peers, elementary children as well, or just basically the middle and high school kids?
Well, it depends. I mean, we have done groups with the older kids, peer support groups, and with the college age students as
Okay.
well. I mean, for little guys, it might look like something different, like a creative space, right? Like you would just maybe approach it a little bit different.
Right.
So.
Are children still upset, frightened with this mask, no mask? That's all you hear about now. You look on the news today, some venues say you must wear masks. You go on a plane, you take the mask off. You go to the airport, you have to wear the mask. So the confusion...
Just yesterday, right?
The confusion must be, when it comes to children,
Yeah.
must be astonishing for them.
And then if you're, preschool children in New York City, you have to wear a mask.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
yeah.
I mean, some of these kids have never been to school without masks on, right? So
We talked
the
about
second
that.
graders, right?
Yes.
I think that what the kids are dealing with, what I see now mostly, is like that they're now dealing with like the residual effects, right? So what they've experienced is really trauma the last 2 years, a constant state of unknowing, right? Uncertainty. And all the news and the way that their parents, the way that we have all adults have handled things, right? So it's trauma. So the way I see it kind of now is like in like behavioral ways. Some kids don't know how to socially interact anymore. They're craving the social interaction. Some people are so disconnected, like you guys said before, disconnected because their friend groups have fallen apart because of all of the separateness. And so it's kind of relearning and reestablishing an identity and friend groups, right, which can be just terrible, right, for someone who's in high school, right, who's had friends the entire time. And I would say substance use, right? You guys were just talking about the vaping. There's this inability to cope, right? And so it's really just using any of these things. So whether it's phone or the vaping now, to just kind of go away, right? To kind of like just be out of your body, right? To be out of this anxiety.
So if parents see anything that they want to they're concerned about, do they contact you folks?
Sure.
How do they
That
go
would be
about
great.
that?
So the hotline number is 914-708-6104, and that is also bilingual. So we have bilingual counselors, and it's actually my hotline. I answer the phone, and I would pass the information on to a crisis counselor that would return the message. It is business hours. I do answer the phone all the time, but it is business hours. So Monday through Friday, 9 to 5-ish. And it's free, confidential, and anonymous. So people can share their concerns. Teachers could share their concerns. Teachers could share their own stress. We've done a lot of workshops and presentations for just restorative practices for teachers and how to be effective in teaching right now.
One more time, that number is?
914-708-6104.
Okay, 911.
And we're very fortunate, Eric, before we close, because we have, these are two great women who want to be able to give back to their own community and to be able to give back to their kids. And I go back to what I said before, and I really, really mean this to the audience. We've gone through a very difficult time. We really have to come together as a community now and really focus in on what's best for our kids, because we have a wealth of resources and people available internally to do some of this work, and more so now than ever we have to do it. This bantering and yelling and screaming at one another doesn't do anybody any good. It happened, we all learn through life, but we gotta now go back to what's best for our kids. And I think that here's an example of two parents who really wanna get involved. And I say this honestly, because as we go into ending this school year and hopefully doing our normal celebrations for graduations and the like that we normally do. But as we go into next year, hopefully going back to a year where we start off together
Yeah.
and we're doing what needs to be done, that we can really come together, because there's a lot of work to be done. And as we know, we've read the research, we've talked about social, emotional, academically, the whole world has suffered from it. And how do we get back to somewhat of what that new normalcy is going to be, knowing that it's different. And I want to commend the both of you for the work that you've done, your patience. I know it's somewhat been a little bit of a long journey, but I thank you from the bottom of my heart for what you can and will be doing for our community. So thank you very much for all your support.
We'll miss you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I
Very
appreciate
much.
it.
Maggie, Pam, we thank
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us. Anthony and I will be right back. Two amazing presentations.
Yeah, I mean, Eric, in believe it or not, this is my fifth year in the budget cycle, and we are really blessed. We have a great community with a lot of great people who want to give their time and energy and effort into doing what's best. And I think it's exemplified, with the work that's being done at the high school, and Mr. Ziegelhofer telling you a little bit about that, and then the two ladies about their input and trying to help not only the kids but our staff and parents navigate through these difficult times. So it's just a testimony, I think, who we are as a community.
Well, Mahopac schools are one cut above. It's that simple. And as I said, when the chips are down, the help is out there from the Mahopac School District.
No question. This community is a community that rallies together and always does what's best for its kids, and that's what makes it a special place.
Superintendent of Schools Anthony DeCarlo, we thank you so much for joining us for this edition of Spotlight on Mahopac Schools. I'm Eric Rose. Thank you, Stash, for your able assistance. Until next time, be well, be safe, have yourselves a good one. Bye-bye now.
For more information, please visit our website, www.mahopac.org. More videos can also be found on our YouTube news channel, mcsd.news.